Known as the father of modern Turkey, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk was the man who transformed the fallen Ottoman Empire, or at least what remained of it, from perceiving itself as just a Muslim nation, part of a bigger empire, into a modern, democratic and secular nation-state. Up to today, Turkey still has indelible marks left in many areas such as the economy, a modern new language, and access to education for both boys and girls, among many others. His life shows what can happen to a nation when it has leaders who are powerful and benevolent at the same time. To know his story from the beginning, let's first travel back to the late 19th century. Mustafa Kemal Ataturk was born in Salonika, which is now situated in Greece. At the time of his birth, the city was part of the Ottoman Empire. The exact time of his birth is not well known, but is believed to be between 1880 and 1881. He was born in a Muslim, Turkish-speaking and middle-class family. Muslims did not have surnames. Names were chosen among the honorific titles attributed to the Prophet Muhammad. Ataturk started life as simply Mustafa, meaning the chosen, one of the appellations of the Prophet. His father, Ali Riza, was a customs officer and a timber merchant. His mother, Zubeyd, was 20 years younger than his father. They had in total 6 children, but only 2 survived, Mustafa and his sister Makbule. Although both being Muslims, his mother was more conservative than his father. She wanted Mustafa to go in a Quranic school while his father insisted on him being schooled in a modern institution. To satisfy Mustafa's mother, his father enrolled him in a Quranic school for a few days. Later, he took him to the modern school. His father died when Mustafa was just 7 or 8 years old. His family had to leave for the countryside to live in a farm owned by his mother's half-brother. However, his mother eventually sent him back to Salonika to pursue his schooling. From seeing one of their neighbors going to a military school, he wanted to wear the smart Western-style uniform of military cadets. So he secretly took the entrance exam and successfully passed. This was about to be the beginning of a journey that would lead him to shape the destiny of his nation. Since his childhood, Mustafa always had an air of superiority, always feeling more important than his peers. When he was young, he was too proud to play leapfrog, as he would not bend down to allow other children to vault over him. While in preparatory school at around age 13 or 14, his mathematics teacher's name was also Mustafa. Eventually, the teacher told him that since they were both Mustafa, the young Mustafa would be called Mustafa Kemal. Kemal meaning perfection. From then on, he became known as Mustafa Kemal. After graduating 4th best in his class from his preparatory school, he went to Monastir Military School. There, he met several people who would later play an important role in his life, as allies and others as rivals. For example, 2 years above him was Enver, who would later become his main rival among revolutionary officers. In November 1898, he graduated from the military high school in Monastir, ranked 2nd in his class. In March 1899, Mustafa entered the War College in Istanbul at the age of 18. The cadets were treated roughly. Mustafa loved the rough food they were given, which consisted of dry beans and rice. And years later, when he was President of the Republic, bean stew remained his favorite dish. It is during this period that he took on a habit of hard work and hard thinking. He could not get to sleep until he had solved a problem that was puzzling him. In this college, he met several of his future companions in the war for Turkey's independence, such as the person who would later become his successor, İsmet İnönü, who was 2 years behind him. Upon completing his time at the War College, he entered the Staff College at 21. By the time he was out of the Staff College, he was placed 5th among 13 successful candidates in a class of 43. After graduating from the Staff College, Mustafa was not able to get a posting in Macedonia, which was an important region. This put him at an initial disadvantage among revolutionary officers. It had crucial but mixed consequences for his own career and the future of the Ottoman state. When the Young Turks coup came in 1908, he was not among the leading group of military revolutionaries. But when that first coup group failed and destroyed itself and the Ottoman state, Mustafa and his friends had their chance to prove their worth. In autumn 1905, him and some of his friends formed a group that they called Fatherland and Freedom, in the hope of eventually leading a revolution. He was able to convince some of his old school friends and 3 of his former teachers in the military school to join the group. However, the group was unable to expand and eventually never took off. Other young officers were having similar plans, and one such group was called the Society of Union and Progress, in English known as CUP. Seeing that this group was gaining traction, he eventually joined it in February 1908. The coup succeeded, and on July 24, 1908, the Sultan restored constitutional rule and ordered parliamentary elections. The CUP soon also began to face issues. One of the provinces where there was immediate trouble was Tripolitania, part of actual Libya. A revolt had broken out and CUP supporters had been chased out of the province. Mustafa was then sent to pacify. He came to know that the decision to send him had been done in order to get rid of him. Fortunately for him, his mission was a success and he was able to pacify the province. When World War I started, the Turks sided with the Germans as they were convinced of the superiority of the German army over those of the Allies. He was the commander of a division during the Battle of Gallipoli, where the Entente powers, Britain, France, and the Russian Empire, sought to weaken the Ottoman Empire, but eventually failed. His leadership during the battle was exceptional. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, he managed to hold off the Allied forces. His famous order to his troops, "I'm not ordering you to attack, I'm ordering you to die," reflected his determination and resilience. By the end of World War I in 1918, the Ottoman Empire was on the losing side. The empire was partitioned by the victorious Allied forces. Despite this, Mustafa's successful defense at Gallipoli made him a national hero. His reputation as a skilled military leader was cemented, and he was promoted to the rank of Pasha, meaning general, by the end of the campaign. The occupation of Constantinople, followed by the occupation of Izmir, the 2 largest Ottoman cities at the time, sparked the establishment of the Turkish national movement and the Turkish War of Independence. One of the controversial parts of his history is about his potential connection to the killings and genocide against mostly Armenians committed by the Young Turk movement in the dying days of the Ottoman Empire. To this day, the Turkish government denies any connection. Most historical evidence suggests that he was not involved with the killings, and that he later went on to condemn them. In 1920, before the Turkish parliament, Mustafa called the genocide a shameful act, but they didn't publicly deny them at that time. At the end of April 1919, Mustafa was assigned as the inspector of the 9th Army troops to reorganize what remained of the Ottoman military units and to improve internal security. His first goal was the establishment of an organized national movement against the occupying forces. He resigned from the Ottoman army on July 8th, and the Ottoman government issued a warrant for his arrest. But other military commanders active in eastern Anatolia followed Mustafa's lead and acknowledged him as their leader. On September 4, 1919, he assembled a congress in Sivas. Those who opposed the Allies in various provinces in Turkey issued a declaration named the National Pact. Mustafa was appointed as the head of the executive committee of the Congress, which gave him the legitimacy he needed for his future politics. Mustafa called for a national election to establish a new Turkish parliament seated in Angora, actual Ankara, the Grand National Assembly, or GNA. On April 23, 1920, the GNA opened with Mustafa as the speaker. This act effectively created a situation of diarchy in the country, one in Constantinople and the other in Ankara. In May 1920, the power struggle between the two governments led to a death sentence in absentia for Mustafa by the Turkish courts-martial. He persuaded the GNA to gather a national army that would fight against the Caliphate army that was supported by Allied occupation forces. The GNA army received a steady supply of gold and armament from the Russian Bolshevik government. It went on winning several battles and regained control of Izmir in September 1922. In July 1923, the Treaty of Lausanne was signed by the powers with the GNA, thus recognizing the latter as the government of Turkey. On 29 October 1923, the Republic of Turkey was proclaimed with Mustafa as its first president. After becoming president, Mustafa made Ankara the country's new capital. He never liked fascism and communism. He thought they were the biggest enemy of the Turkish world and made sure they never spread into Turkey, as it was soon to be in the Soviet Union and Italy. From the very beginning of the Republic, he tried to implement several reforms. In April 1924, Sharia courts were abolished. In education, he made education inclusive, tried to institute compulsory primary education for both girls and boys. His reforms on education made it significantly more accessible. Between 1923 and 1938, the number of students attending primary, middle, and high schools increased by more than 10 times. Beginning in the fall of 1925, he encouraged the Turks to wear modern European attire. Even though he personally promoted modern dress for women, he never made specific reference to women clothing in the law. It was his adopted daughters, Sabiha and Afet, who provided the real role model for the Turkish women of the future. By 1934, he had granted women full political rights, and in the 1935 general elections, 18 out of 395 MPs were female. This was revolutionary for the period, compared, for example, to 9 out of 615 members in the British House of Commons, or 6 out of 535 in the US House of Representatives. He also banned polygamy and made obligatory civil marriage. In 1928, he changed the Turkish alphabet from an Arabic script to a modified Latin one. When he asked the language expert how long it would take to implement the new alphabet into the Turkish language, most of the language said between 3 and 5 years. He was said to have scoffed and openly stated, "We shall do it in 3 to 5 months." While giving a speech in September 1934, a politician named Safed Arkan was the first to call Mustafa Ataturk, father of the Turks, and later Mustafa adopted it as his surname. Under his rule, the surname law was implemented. It obligated the Turkish people to adopt fixed hereditary surnames and forbade names that contained connotations of foreign cultures, nations, tribes, and religions. As a result, many ethnic Armenians, Greeks, and Kurds changed their surnames. Non-Turkish surnames ending with Yan, Vich, Dis, Pulos, Zvili, Bin could not be registered and were replaced by Oglu. In regards to the economy, his regime saw an increase in industrial production by 150%, and GDP capita rose from 800 to around 2000 by late 1930, at the same rate with Japan. He also passed several laws in favor of workers, such as wage increases and improvement of their working conditions. Following the Great Depression, he established the Central Bank of Turkey in 1931 in order to control exchange rates. His foreign policy followed his motto, "Peace at home, peace in the world," a perception of peace linked to his project of civilization and modernization. The Turkish War of Independence was the last time he used his military might in dealing with other countries. Foreign issues were resolved by peaceful method during his presidency. In his personal life, he has been associated with 4 women but only married one, Latif Usakligil, in 1923. Their marriage did not last long as they divorced in 1925. During his lifetime, he adopted 13 children, 1 boy and 12 girls, the most famous being Sabiha Gökçen. She went on to become Turkey's first female pilot and the world's first female fighter pilot. Some Turkish sources claim he was a devout Muslim. However, according to other sources, he himself was an agnostic, or even an atheist who was anti-religious and anti-Islamic in general. Throughout most of his life, he was a moderate to heavy drinker, often consuming half a liter of raki, national alcoholic drink in Turkey, a day. He also smoked tobacco, predominantly in the form of cigarettes. During 1937, indication that his health was worsening started to appear. In early 1938, while on a trip to Yalova near Istanbul, he suffered from a serious illness. He was later diagnosed with cirrhosis in Istanbul. During his stay in Istanbul, he made an effort to keep up with his regular lifestyle, but eventually succumbed to his illness. He died on 10 November 1938 at the age of 57. Despite his radical secular reforms, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk remained broadly popular in the Muslim world. He is remembered for being the creator of a new, fully independent Muslim country at a time of encroachment by Christian powers and for having prevailed in a struggle against Western imperialism. Stay tuned for more personalities and figures in time, and don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment.